Hey everyone, it's Artina McCain and Martin McCain here back with our Elevate Spring series. We are so glad that you guys tune in each week to hear from our amazing guests, and this week is no different.
So this week we have award-winning, internationally renowned violinist Anyango Yarbo-Davenport, and she's absolutely amazing, and we know that you're going to love this interview.
She dropped some great hints about diversity in classical music, some of the amazing projects she's got going on. I mean, she's still playing Brahms Concerto in a pandemic,
Right.
which already is like, wow. But I know you're going to enjoy this interview, so here it goes.
Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have Anyango Yarbo-Davenport, violinist extraordinaire. She's all over the place, and we first met her at the Gateways Music Festival in Rochester, New York. I guess that was 2013. And we want to just thank you so much for being our guest this afternoon. How's everything going?
Oh, it's going great. Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe this was in 2013. This is like 8 years ago.
I know. And it's taken us this long to get together during a pandemic, too.
And we're only 21 years old, so I don't understand how that could have been 13 years ago.
Years. I just made it to 25 yesterday.
Well, happy birthday.
So Anyango, can you have like such an illustrious career, especially for being so young. I mean, can you tell us about your musical upbringing? And I know that you come from a musical family. Could you tell our audience about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Munich, Germany, which is why I still have this accent. And yeah, my mom is a singer. My dad was a conductor and violinist. And I think the whole story began when I was about 2 years old. And I was trying always to conduct along with Leonard Bernstein, who was broadcast on TV, conducting the New York Philharmonic. And I always tried to conduct along, apparently. And according to my mom, on my second birthday, I asked for an orchestra as a birthday gift, as you do, as a 2-year-old. And she said no, mainly because she couldn't make coffee for the entire orchestra. So I decided for the violin because the concertmaster was closest to the conductor. So that's how everything started. And I always loved the piano as well. And in Europe, it was very traditional that you play a piano as well as any other instrument for score reading, etc. And yeah, I think during my undergraduate at the Mozarteum in Salzburg, Austria, that's when I kind of zeroed in on violin. Actually, it took me quite a while. But I think what makes the violin so unique is that you can always take it with you. It's always your voice versus a pianist has a much harder life with that. Of course, you have to play what's there. And I think especially for an only child, like having the violin with her was kind of a nice thing. It was a way to express myself at a young age already. And so, yeah, I think that's why my heart goes with the string instrument.
Love it.
That's awesome. So when did you move to the States?
Oh my gosh, I moved to the States. I don't even remember exactly. I think it must have been 2006, more or less. I started my undergraduate in Austria at the Mozarteum, and there I met Professor Charles Castleman, who was a fantastic mentor and person and violinist extraordinaire. And I met him in the hallway. I was on the way to my final exams for music history to do a review session. And I saw this tiny little red sign that said Charles Castleman, Eastman School of Music, Masterclasses. And we could sign up. And I was kind of thinking, should I go to the review session or should I check out this masterclass? And as you have it, in that moment, he opens the door and, he's a little short guy and he has so much energy. And he came out and said, I'm Charlie Castleman. Would you like to play for me? And I said, you know what? Yes. I had never met in my life a teacher who was so accessible, who was so direct with the student. He was not trying to impress you or asserting his authority. He is who he is. And he really loves teaching and loves bringing the best out of every student. And that's why I decided to move to the US. I had no idea who he was in that moment or who Eastman was, what Eastman was. But I just knew in that one masterclass that I had with him that I needed to study with this type of human being, and specifically with him. He's just so wonderful. So yeah, that's what started the journey.
Wow. Okay. I have so many things. Okay. So I want to hold on to this teacher piece. And I'm also curious about musical parents, because my parents aren't musical, but there was music in our family. And then Martin comes from a very musical family. So I hear stories about people who come from these families, especially so intense, a conductor, a violinist, and a vocalist on their upbringing as children, and then coming to this point where, you have this fantastic teacher. So how did your parents influence, for better or worse, your musical career as a youth?
I think just by the fact that my mom let me do what I wanted to do, I could practice when I wanted to practice. And if I didn't feel like practicing, I just didn't practice. But it was normal at home that somebody would be practicing. So I think I absorbed it just as you absorb drinking water. It's just something you do. And it never came up that it is a chore or something you must do. It is something you do, just like eating, breathing. And so I think that's really what kept me playing as a young child and stay with this discipline, because there was nobody who said to me, you must practice 4 or 8 hours a day. It was more of a game. And I remember this one thing very distinctly. I think I was definitely not 6 years old yet. And my mom said to me, I was playing in the living room we had a little swing for kids. And I was playing in the living room on that swing. And she said, your violin teacher is about to come tomorrow, but you haven't practiced. So I will just cancel her because you're not prepared for her. And I remember that feeling at that moment. That's all I remember, looking down from the swing and kind of being devastated because I loved my teacher. And so I think that was kind of the twisting moment or the key moment where I realized I must practice if I want to participate in this activity. But it was my attitude, my realization. So I think that makes a huge difference, it wasn't a typical musician household where, a clock was turned on and you must fulfill this. And that's probably the best thing for me as a person, because I wouldn't have done it otherwise, kind of a little bit stubborn.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's really good because, about a lot of parents who really enforce, you have to practice now. And I can relate with that because my family never had to tell me to practice, just wanted to do it. It was just a culture. And I feel like that definitely pays dividends to the future generation when, they're not forced to do it, but they're doing it because they want to do it.
And they love it. And I think that shows up with you and your career. And, I'm always sad by the people who are like, my parents made me do this. And I still, even with the professional career, don't know why I'm doing this, because it shows up on the stage. We can see that you're just beaming music, and we want to hear you because we're like, she loves this. So this is great. So Anyango, I want to talk about your teacher. So you mentioned, I love, your mom is so smart. I guess we're gonna have to cancel the lesson. I'm totally going to try that on my students now. I guess we're going to have to cancel the lesson. I'm going to do it just like that.
Yeah. Yep.
It's super effective. I'm wondering, so you've had these great influences with your family, but then also you mentioned your teacher and just what a great human being he was and is. So I wonder, how has that affected your own teaching? Because you're a professor. So tell them about that, your current position, and how your upbringing has influenced yourself as a teacher and educator.
Yeah, I think that's a very vast question. So I'll do my best to become concise with the answer. I think the very first thing I've noticed once I started entering university as a student myself, I wanted to correct somehow the mistakes perhaps teachers have made with me and how they speak to the student or how they encourage or discourage the student. Because I think, music is a very tough business anyhow, and you have to be your best and then 50% more in order to provide and to have a place on stage. And so many times I think well-meaningly teachers almost discourage the student by augmenting the pressure in such a way that it's actually counterproductive or makes you feel badly about yourself. But I think, again, from when I was very little, I always had this drive to play. I always wanted to solve what I couldn't play, why I couldn't play it. So I think that love for the craft drove me regardless of if somebody told me I was good or not at what I was doing. And of course, it helps if you have a mother that tells you, you know what, you decide who you are and how you are. Don't let anybody else judge you. And I think that's also a very important co-element to the young musicians' upbringing. And I think, once I was in university, I really wanted to correct certain ways of how this instrument is being taught, because we do have to be rigid with all our instruments to make it, but we can change the way we convey that. And I think it is much more effective if the teacher, like Professor Kasselman or Professor Zeitlin, for example, they are on your side. They want to make you good at what you're doing. And they want you to be able to express what you have in you as a musician, as an artist. Versus other teachers who may have said things like, you're not good enough to play that solo. Instead, the idea is, let's solve it. How can you play this well enough that you can play this as a soloist? And I think that approach specifically with Professor Kasselman really relieved me and opened me up as a person that wants to then share how do you reproduce what I'm doing on the instrument, technically and musically. And so now that I'm teaching now currently at the Pontifical Javeriana University in Bogota, Colombia. And I think there, of course, also for the culture and the tradition of classical music in Colombia has been also this old world approach of, you have to bite your way through to make it. And I got to see in my teaching over the last 12 years that if I just share with the student what I love about this piece, what I love about the instrument, what I love about getting the third finger perfectly right in terms of intonation and sound quality, it has a much better effect. And it's much more fun teaching that way, I would imagine. I never taught the other way around, but I would imagine being nice to somebody, encouraging someone, and seeing their successes accumulate over time. And then suddenly they jump and they win competitions, they win orchestra chairs, they win scholarships. I mean, that's the best reward for a teacher. And I think that is the reason, even though I don't have as much years in teaching as many of my colleagues, of our colleagues that have great successes with students, I think my students get on full scholarship to Eastman, into Indiana University, into Vienna Musikhochschule, because they are not afraid to make a mistake in front of me. I think they are encouraged so I can help them fix it.
Wow, you nailed that. That's absolutely amazing. You make me want to have a lesson.
I know. I'm like, does she teach piano too? Because you learn about this technique.
That's so awesome. Yeah, well, we definitely need more teachers out there like that and just molding this future generation. So we commend you on such an inspiring teaching style.
Thank you.
I wanted to move over to you do everything. You're a soloist, you're a collaborator, recording artist. I'm not sure if this is your first recording, Americana. Can you talk a little bit about that and what inspired this recording project?
Yeah, that is my first solo recording, so to speak. I had gathered a lot of experience doing studio work, doing work for film scores and for composers commissioning works. But this is my first experience, or was my first experience, recording a solo or duo album, I should really say, because the piano part is just as much as a concerto as the violin part in many parts. I think the one thing that I personally have is always when I play, I evaluate at the same time. And so I think especially for us musicians, as we're recording, we're almost evaluating, okay, this was good, this is not going to be usable, this take we're going to use, etc. But as you know, the pieces on this particular CD, like the Corigliano Sonata, Bob Aldridge's Carolinian dances, are such vast pieces. They're long, they're heavy playing, they're technically demanding, and musically push the boundaries. So you don't have time to keep your head on how you're doing. You have only that much brain space to focus on if you're getting your point across musically. And that's what I loved about this particular recording process, because it was my first experience where I could completely push myself in terms of musicianship, in terms of sound color, in terms of interpretation, in terms of collaboration together with the fantastic pianist Vanessa Fadile, and also picking the right recording engineer that lets you do another take and try it differently. And he understands you because he himself is a musician as well as violinist, pianist, and that makes all the difference. So for me, this process, I was kind of nervous going into it, I must honestly say, because I wasn't sure, what if I have a bad day? Am I going to be able to do my best still? And then at some point, once I was standing on the stage, I told myself, you know what? Even if you have a bad day, you already can play the violin. So the worst that can come out is a take that you're not going to use. So nobody's dying. We're all okay. And just have fun. It's for the love of music, and it's not for reproducing it how somebody else tells you it must sound like. It is your version on the composer, Jennifer Higdon's Work String Poetic, Corigliano Sonata, and Robert Aldridge's Carolinian Dances, which was actually their world premiere recording. So what a great honor. So I had all these great drives to focus on. And at some point, my little ego just disappeared, and it was fun.
I love that, because as recording artists, especially probably these days, we're all recording more than we ever have before, just by necessity. It is so nerve-wracking to go in. And I mean, what you were saying about the recording engineer, I never really thought about it like that. Like, I need you to let me have another take and be nice about it and encourage me. I mean, we all need that stroking and hugging during the process, because
that's it.
We're so hard on ourselves, but you're right. I'm still professional. And I mean, what's the worst can happen? I mean, really, sometimes our mistakes are so minuscule.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like nobody even knew it was there.
Yeah, or sometimes it's just your own perception in the moment. And later you listen back and say, oh, you know what? 80%, 90% of the takes were actually good. Now I can just pick what I like better. And it's so important to just experience this recording process. And that's why I started telling my students, just from this experience, every day, make a point of recording yourself. Can be 2 minutes, can be 5 minutes, can be 30 minutes or an hour. But just record your scale. Start with that. And that will get rid of your nerves. It will get you comfortable. It will give you more confidence. And it'll give you a real perspective on how you actually sound and play. And it might not be as bad as you think.
Exactly.
It's usually not as bad as you think.
Exactly. Yeah, and especially with technology these days, I mean, you have your cell phone. I mean, I remember like back when I was an undergrad, I mean, we were pulling out mini disc recorders just to record yourself, and the whole process of going back to listen. I mean, there's no reason to not record yourself. It's so easy these days. So easy.
But exactly. Perspective. So I'm curious, Anyango, because you have, this recording project or that we just spoke about, and then also so many other projects. I read about your concertos that are upcoming in the season. And how have you been dealing with this in the pandemic? Are you still doing these tours? Have some of them moved online? Like, what does that look like for you as a performing artist during this time?
Yeah, it's been kind of challenging, but as you were saying, like during the pandemic, the recording experience has been super helpful. So 3 of my residencies moved online, actually. So we were able to still connect with the students, teach a remote masterclass and give some interviews, talks, and then also a virtual recital where I was able to program together with a pianist called Jin Sung Kim, a program that is almost 85% composers of African ancestry, which was a really lovely experience for me because I've never gotten to do that before. And then, of course, some residencies, some performances were unfortunately moved to this year or next year, 2022. But then also it has been a great experience to just practice and evaluate what I really want to do. I mean, what I'm doing is what I love doing, performing, teaching. But am I playing what I want to play? Because I think also as a human being, you develop. And this pandemic has been such a magnifying glass on issues that affect us as a collective every day. And I think we build up a certain resilience or a certain shield to it in our daily lives. But by being home, by not having certain distractions, we really had to deal with certain social injustices that we just have to develop, we have to process, we have to overcome emotionally, and many times physically as well. And I think that is, again, something that is very important to express in your artistry. So as a musician, for me as a violinist, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like if I'm not in a good mood, you will know, and I can't hide it. And if I'm going through something emotionally that is hurtful, because I'm being judged based on my skin color or my mother's skin color, or I'm being attacked because of it, that will reflect in what I'm playing. So I might not feel that day like playing, I don't know, a Mozart sonata. Maybe that day I need to play Shostakovich. And so I've taken this pandemic to kind of allow myself to play, sight read, revisit pieces that I really emotionally connect to first, most of all, and then try to arrange them in a programming order that would make it attractive to audiences, that tells a story, but it also doesn't overburden the audience, because people come to your concerts or they tune into your channel because they also want relief from their day. So I think this pandemic has been great on a personal growth spectrum, on a musical growth spectrum, because I could zero in on the things that really, really matter and what really is unnecessary. And I think as artists, we're often in the people-pleasing business, and we want to entertain the audience, but we have to, in my opinion, we have to make sure our souls get to speak fully in every piece we play. And that I think will help us to make the most unique connection with the audience. So that's kind of what I'm gearing at. I changed all my concert programming pretty much, 90% of it. The only thing that was maintained was the Price Violin Concerto and the Brahms Violin Concerto. And hopefully it looks like I'm going to be able to play as a soloist with an orchestra, the Brahms, starting May this year. So fingers crossed, all the good energy. Yeah, and other than that, more recording projects. But yeah. This is my focus.
There's so many nuggets there.
Oh, no.
Where to start? I mean, yes, there are so many social issues that affect us as people of color, as people of African descent. And you are a big, advocate for diversity. I mean, we've done some stuff together, and I know that, and I can tell by the work that you produce and how eloquent you speak about that. I didn't even know that you changed your programming. I love that idea, actually. Can you imagine, like, hey guys, guess what happened today? We're not playing Mozart. Wow. So there's so many things there. And I'd love for you to just maybe give your opinion or your thoughts about, where we are in classical music as far as diversity. That could be specifically to violinists or just in general, chamber music, orchestra, anything that speaks to you.
Yeah, I think where we're at in classical music right now is a really exciting time, because I think there's more awareness that we need to change the lack of diversity in our industry. And there's more programs that are focusing on changing this. But I hope it's not just a fashion thing again. Like when St. George was discovered and he was hailed to be the young Mozart, even though he was older than Mozart, and Mozart took some of his themes and incorporated it into his Sinfonia Concertante. That was a fashion thing. And then the thing about Beethoven being part of Moorish ancestry, of Black ancestry from the Spaniards, it was again a fashion thing. So it pops up usually every 5 to 6 years in some article well researched, but it's just an article and a fashion thing. And I think 2020 has been so brutally honest, and 2021 already within its first 6 days has been so brutally honest on the difference of how we're being treated based on our skin color. So I think this is the time where concert programming directors, where directors of orchestras can make a statement, where CEOs of music festivals like Color of Music Festival can make a statement of keeping their mission focused and yet also enhanced on furthering not only artists but also composers of African ancestry. I think that is a powerful year coming up, and I hope it continues to follow through on all fronts. And I think who's key in that is the audience. If they demand it, then they will receive it. So I pray for that, to be very honest. And in my own programming, like I was saying, the virtual recital, for example, that's coming up on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, for Lou Media Music, for example, I'm doing a movement of Beethoven, a movement of Bach, violin solo works that I've arranged for 5 violins. But I'm also doing Coleridge Taylor Perkinson and Samuel Coleridge Taylor. And I think that's a very powerful thing to show the high-level composition, the high-level play in a program that holds par with Bach's Preludio from the E major partita, for example, or any other standard work. These pieces deserve to be featured. They deserve to be in the regular concert music canon, and they should be, because it's part of all our histories. So, yeah.
Amen.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's great that we have organizations that are, fueling that and just giving that to our communities. And you spoke just a little bit on this, but maybe a little bit more about your work with Color of Music.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell the audience if they don't know about Color of Music and what it is.
Absolutely. Color of Music, spelled with OU, the British way, as a Black Classical Musicians Festival. So the focus of this festival is to feature artists of African ancestry, but does not exclude other artists. So that's a very wonderful mission. And I think just as Gateways Music Festival, this festival has its own very strict mission of presenting concert artists in festival settings that go around the country. So it's always a national tour, soon international. The idea is to showcase not just the standard ensemble, but also that goes to full orchestra, goes to chorus, but also to showcase violin piano duo, a percussion ensemble, and more of the intimate things, as well as the virtuosi chamber players, which is an all-female orchestra, a chamber orchestra that I direct, and we're all educators as well. So that's a very unique experience that you don't get at every music festival. So it's an exciting organization. It is a wonderful representation on the major concert stages in the US, and I think representation matters. So for a young boy or girl with the same skin color, same hair texture, to see that same person on stage and to see you playing in the tutti, see you playing in the solo, see you singing the arias with a pianist or with a full orchestra, that is such an invaluable thing. And I think I always had this representation because of my mother. And she is a concert singer. And so it was normal for me to see a Black woman on stage. But now that I have a bigger perspective on it as an adult, that was the only woman I saw. So at firsthand. And of course, I got to see Jessie Norman when I was a teenager, and Grace Bombry. And that's wonderful, but it's not enough. So representation matters, and that's why I'm so passionate about this particular festival, because we get to reach communities way in all big cities and all important HBCUs as well as non-HBCUs. And that's such an important connection directly with the audience. And it's a wonderful festival. So at the end of January, we're going to do another recording session of the festival that's coming up in February. And I think, Artina, you're going to be part of it. So that's going to be amazing.
Oh, yay. Man, just dropping all kind of things on the interview. This is so exciting. I love what you said about representation matters, and even just bringing up your mom as, normal for you. I always see a Black woman on the stage, but then realizing, oh, wait, my mom is the only one I'm seeing. Because I think we're tokenized so many times too often, our friends, especially if European and Asian descent. I mean, there's droves of people I could select from, right? And that's normal. Like for me to have many friends of Asian ancestry who are phenomenal pianists and I can put on a series. But it seems like when it gets to Black and African descent, it's like, well, we can only have one. Right. And then everybody else, has multiple opportunities at many festivals. So I think the more normative this can become, that we could have many different people of color on any festival is so important. And the work that you're doing is helping us get there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So, I feel like we could just chat up. We need to have our own coffee date, just FYI. Next time you're in the States.
Absolutely.
So tell us about, you've kind of already alluded to many things that are going on with color music, but anything else the audience should know about you that you haven't said? It could be something fun you do or something musical that you have coming up.
Let's see. I have a CD coming up. We have started recording it last year, exactly in January. We got through half of it and then borders shut down. But the fun thing about it is that it works from Bartók to Takemitsu, and it's also a commissioned sonata by Juan Antonio Cuellar, a composer here in Colombia and colleague of mine. So this will be a CD for violin and piano, and it's called The Invisible Ties, and based on Friedrich Nietzsche's quote. And so that will hopefully be coming up by the end of 2021. I'll put it on my website. What else? I have the recording coming up at the end of January, early February for Color of Music. So the festival will move online in the month of February. So you can check that out on their website. And what else? Well, the school semester is about to start pretty soon. So I have serious plans to relax one more week and practice whenever I want. So that's going to be exciting. And I'm making my way through my 2021 book list. So I had made an effort last year during 2020 to read about 25 books on the history, for example, Ibram X. Kendi, on anti-racism, what's the difference between non-racist, anti-racist. So that's been really interesting because I think these times of being quiet are the times we need to educate ourselves and expand our horizon, and that is a never-ending quest, no? And so, 2021 is going to have lots of interesting books on it. So I'll post that on Instagram and the reading list.
Oh, nice. Have you read, side note, have you read The Heart of a Woman? Because that's on my list right now about Florence Price.
No, I have not.
Put it on your list. Good? You need to read. Yes.
Okay, I will. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah. Well, Anyango, we're going to say bye to our audience. We'll stay online with you, but thank you so much. Can you tell them your social tags where they can find you?
Absolutely. My website is www.anyangomusic.com. And that's the exact same thing for Instagram, my Facebook page, and my Twitter. I have to be better with my Twitter, but I do have a Twitter and I intend to tweet more. But all of it is anyangomusic.com or just Anyango Music. And I'm the only one with that playing violin, so it won't be hard to find me.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. This was definitely inspiring, and I love doing these to just learn new things and be inspired myself. So thank you so much.
Thank you for including me on your amazing series. Congratulations. It's been a refreshing every week kind of discovery for me on your Instagram, on your YouTube channel, and it's been great, super inspiring. So thank you for including me.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, thanks for listening in, everybody. Bye. Wasn't that awesome?
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
I mean, how is she getting so many things done all the time? And we were commenting about how amazing her backdrop looks. I mean, the flowers, the degrees. Take some notes, you all. That was an incredible interview with Anyango. I hope that you learned so much. If you learned so much, can you share with a friend? We really need your support in that way to increase our subscribers so that we can bring you all more of this type of content.
If you like what you're hearing and seeing, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our website, McCainDuo.com.
See you next time.